the dark alleys of St. Petersburg. The dim glow of lanterns flickers in puddles, illuminating the damp cobblestones. Somewhere in the distance, muffled footsteps echo, like the thoughts tearing through the mind. It was here, among the shadows and ghosts of the past, that the works of Fyodor Mikhailovich Dostoevsky were born, one of the most enigmatic and profound writers in history. His life was not just a biography, but a novel filled with betrayals, miraculous rescues, fatal passions, and mystical premonitions. Today, we embark on a journey through his fate, delving into the most astonishing stories that could have become pages of his own books. St. Petersburg, December 22nd, 1849. The frost grips the air, but the faces of those sentenced to death burn, not from the cold, but from feverish terror. A young Dostoevsky stands among them, his hands tied, soldiers with rifles before him. One moment, and everything is over. But just before the shots ring out, the sound of hooves breaks the silence. A courier rushes in with a message from Tsar Nicholas I. The condemned men are pardoned. Instead of death, hard labor. Later, Fyodor Mikhailovich would say that in those moments, when he was certain of his demise, he truly understood the meaning of life. He was haunted not only by the fear of death, but by another, more earthly curse, gambling. In German casinos, he lost everything, down to his last coin. He swore to Anna, his wife, that he would never touch roulette again. Yet time and again, he sought salvation in that mad whirl of risk. Once, to pay off his debts, he made a fateful deal. If he didn't submit a manuscript on time, he would lose the rights to all his works. In a desperate race against time, he dictated the novel, The Gambler, to his stenographer, Anna Snitkina, in just 26 days. This woman not only saved him from financial ruin, but became his lifelong support. Some readers say that Dostoevsky was not just a writer, but a prophet. His novel, Demons, is not merely a book, but an ominous shadow of the future. He described terrorists who, decades later, would incite revolution and spill blood in the streets of Russia. In Crime and Punishment, he peered into the mind of a murderer who would justify his crime. And even his final lines in The Brothers Karamazov seem like a warning of the coming cataclysms. Dostoevsky suffered from epilepsy but called it his gift. He claimed that during seizures, he saw something higher, the truth hidden from ordinary people. In one such moment, he recounted, he experienced indescribable bliss, a feeling as if he had grasped the meaning of life. He sought to convey this in his works, making us experience moments of ecstasy and despair alongside his characters. A few months before his death, he said he could feel the end approaching. In January 1881, his heart stopped. It seemed like the end, but no, his funeral became an event comparable to a revolution. Crowds of people, students, workers, intellectuals, came to see him off on his final journey. They carried his books, his portraits, as if understanding that with Dostoevsky's departure, an entire era was coming to an end. Why do people commit crimes? What pushes a person to cross the line between morality and law? And most importantly, can redemption truly erase guilt? These are the questions that Fyodor Dostoevsky explored in his most popular book, Crime and Punishment, one of the greatest psychological novels of all time. But why did Dostoevsky write this book? What hidden meanings did he weave into its pages? Let's dive into the depths of Crime and Punishment to unravel its most profound ideas. To understand this novel, we must first understand the man behind it. Dostoevsky's life had already brought him to the edge of death. In 1849, he was arrested for his involvement in a radical intellectual circle and sentenced to execution. The rifles were loaded, the condemned men were lined up, only for a last-minute royal pardon to commute their sentence to hard labor in Siberia. This experience changed him forever. Living among real criminals, murderers, and thieves, he witnessed the raw essence of guilt, punishment, and redemption. He saw that crime was not just an action, but a deep psychological and moral struggle. These ideas would later become the foundation of crime and punishment. At the heart of the novel is Rodion Raskolnikov, a former student trapped in poverty and despair. He develops a theory: humanity is divided into two types: ordinary people, who must obey the law, and extraordinary people, who have the right to break it for the greater good. He believes that figures like Napoleon were able to commit crimes without guilt because they were destined for greatness. Raskolnikov asks himself, "Am I one of those great men?" To prove it, he decides to kill a pawnbroker, an old woman whom he sees as useless and cruel. But reality shatters his theory. Instead of liberation, the murder brings only suffering. Guilt haunts him, turning his mind into a battlefield. He isolates himself, avoids friends, and falls into delirium. Dostoevsky masterfully shows that punishment begins long before the law catches up to a criminal. It begins in the soul. Porfiry Petrovich, the investigator, doesn't need physical evidence. He knows Raskolnikov's mind is his own worst enemy. With psychological pressure and subtle manipulation, he pushes Raskolnikov closer and closer to confession. Dostoevsky introduces Sonya Marmeladova, a symbol of self-sacrifice and faith. Despite her suffering, she remains pure and compassionate. When Raskolnikov confesses his crime to her, she doesn't judge him. Instead, she urges him to repent, to seek redemption not through logic, but through faith and suffering. The biblical story of Lazarus, which Sonya reads to him, is symbolic. Just as Lazarus was resurrected, Raskolnikov has a chance to be reborn. In the end, he chooses to confess. His punishment is exile to Siberia, but this is not just a legal sentence. It is a path to spiritual rebirth. Sonya follows him, embodying the power of love and forgiveness. Dostoevsky suggests that true redemption is not found in intellectual theories, but in humility, faith, and human connection. Crime and Punishment is more than just a crime novel. It is a deep psychological and philosophical exploration of human nature. It asks, can an idea justify a crime? Does guilt always demand punishment? Is suffering necessary for redemption? Dostoevsky doesn't give easy answers. Instead, he forces us to look inside ourselves and ask, what would I have done? Fyodor Dostoevsky is not just a writer. He is a voice echoing through the ages, calling us to peer into the darkest corners of the soul. He lived like his own characters, balancing on the edge of despair and hope. Which story about him amazed you the most? What do you think of Raskolnikov's theory? Do great people have the right to break the law? Leave your comments and share your thoughts. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, like, and until next time.